Every inch of my body was screaming that something was off. The welcome wasn't what I had anticipated. This was something far more unsettling. There was no warmth, no comfort, only cold, unsettling stares that made me question everything I thought I knew about this place. It was as if I had walked into a story I didn't understand. The silence wrapped itself around me like a heavy cloak. I couldn't figure out what was happening. The tension in the room was unbearable. I stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The welcome I received was far from what I expected. I walked into the room, my mind full of expectations, but nothing prepared me for the shock of what actually awaited me. The air around me felt thick, heavy, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I wasn't ready for what was coming next. I could feel their eyes on me, but it wasn't comforting. It was cold, almost predatory. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of it. The silence was louder than words. My heart pounded as I stood there, unsure of what was happening or what to expect. I didn't know whether to stay or leave. The energy in the room was so intense, it felt like it could swallow me whole. The anticipation was unbearable, like something was about to break. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, waiting for the inevitable. I walked in expecting to feel at home, but instead, I felt like an intruder. Their stares were too intense, too knowing. It was a welcome that left me questioning everything. What did I miss? What was hidden from me? The answers felt just out of reach. Everything around me seemed to slow, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to make my next move. I could feel the weight of their gazes on me. It wasn't friendly, it wasn't welcoming, it was heavy, full of unspoken meaning. The door closed behind me, and with it my sense of safety. I was now in the midst of something I couldn't understand. There was a moment, just a split second, when everything went quiet. And in that silence, I realized this welcome wasn't for me. The coldness in the room was undeniable. The way they looked at me, it felt like they were expecting something from me, something I wasn't sure I had. I didn't realize it at the time, but that moment was the beginning of something that would change everything. The welcome wasn't just a greeting, it was a warning. It was like stepping into a world where nothing was as it seemed. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was oppressive, heavy with meaning. Every part of me wanted to run, but I was frozen in place. The welcome wasn't what I expected, and now I had no idea what to do next. It's hard to explain the feeling. the unsettling calm, the stillness that seemed to speak louder than words. I wasn't prepared for the weight of the silence. It was as though I had stepped into a different world and I didn't belong here. Their stares made me feel like I was being judged, dissected. I could feel the tension, but I couldn't understand why it was there. I expected laughter, warmth, maybe even excitement. Instead, I was met with cold eyes and a silence that felt too loud. The more I tried to adjust, the more I felt like I was slipping into something dark, something I wasn't ready for. I thought I was prepared for anything, but nothing could have prepared me for the cold reception that awaited me. It was like stepping into an unknown world. I felt like I was trespassing in a world I didn't belong to, surrounded by eyes that saw through me, waiting for me to slip up. The silence wasn't just empty, it was filled with a weight that pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. I could feel the tension building like a storm ready to break. Every second felt like an eternity, each heartbeat louder than the last. The air was thick with something I couldn't name, and it made every breath feel like a struggle. Why did everything feel so wrong? I entered with a smile, but I could feel the smile fading the moment I realized this was not the welcome I had imagined. My eyes scanned the room, but I couldn't read their faces. Were they judging me, waiting for me to make a mistake? The uncertainty was unbearable. The stares burned into my skin, but no one spoke. The silence screamed, filling the room with more questions than answers. I thought I understood the situation, but the moment I walked in, everything shifted. It was as if the rules had changed, and I hadn't been told. What was supposed to be a warm reception felt more like an interrogation. Their silence spoke louder than words ever could. I stepped inside, but the air was thick with something dark, like a storm cloud that refused to break. What were they hiding from me? Every glance felt like a test, every moment a challenge. The welcome I expected was nowhere to be found. Instead, I was greeted by a cold, uneasy tension. The moment I walked in, everything felt different. A chill in the air, a strange heaviness. I didn't expect this kind of welcome, not at all. I was met with silence that echoed louder than words. The anticipation unbearable. What was coming next? I wasn't prepared for this. There was something in their eyes, a hidden message, something unspoken. It sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't expect this kind of welcome. It's like I was walking into a dream, yet it felt more like a nightmare. The welcome I received was nothing like I imagined. My heart raced with uncertainty. The doors swung open, but it wasn't the warm embrace I'd hoped for. Instead, I felt eyes on me, waiting, judging, and I had no idea why. The air crackled with tension as soon as I stepped inside. Every single movement felt loaded, every glance too heavy. This wasn't the welcome I thought I'd get. I took a deep breath, expecting a warm greeting, but what I got was a cold wave of uncertainty. I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. The room seemed too quiet, almost too still. The tension was palpable. I had no clue what was coming, but I knew it wasn't what I imagined. It was as if time slowed the moment I entered. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, none of them pleasant. I wasn't prepared for what came next. I felt like I was walking into a storm I couldn't see. Their eyes were full of secrets, full of something unspoken, and it left me in a state of dread. What should have been a warm welcome felt like a test I didn't study for. My heart pounded, my thoughts scrambled. What had I walked into? I wasn't expecting a welcoming embrace, but I wasn't expecting this cold reception either. Every second felt like it stretched on forever. The look in their eyes told me everything. No words needed to be said. This wasn't the welcome I had hoped for, and it was unsettling. I felt my stomach drop as soon as I walked in. The silence was deafening, and I could feel all eyes on me. What did they want? What was this about? A cold gust of air hit me as I stepped inside. It felt as though the very atmosphere shifted around me. I couldn't shake the sense of something sinister. The warmth I expected to find was replaced with a tension so thick I could hardly breathe. This wasn't the welcome I imagined. Something felt off. I wasn't sure if it was the eerie quiet or the eyes that followed me, but something about the situation felt all wrong. What was really happening here? I took my first step inside and immediately felt the energy change. It wasn't the comforting embrace I hoped for, but something much more foreboding. A chill crawled up my spine as I entered the room. Their stares were too intense, and the silence was overwhelming. What had I gotten myself into? I walked in, expecting to be greeted with open arms, but all I felt was an icy stare that seemed to pierce my very soul. I can't explain it, but there was a strange energy in the room. The welcome I received wasn't what I expected. It was far colder, far more unsettling. Their eyes were like daggers, their silence suffocating. I couldn't figure out what had just happened, but I knew it was something important. I stepped inside with hope, but all that greeted me was a strange, eerie silence that made every muscle in my body tense. My heart was racing as I stood there, unsure of how to react. This wasn't the warm greeting I envisioned. This was something entirely different. There's something about the way they looked at me that made everything feel off. It was like they were waiting for something I couldn't understand. I entered with excitement, but the chill in the air made my excitement drain away. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was loaded with meaning I couldn't grasp. I should have known something was wrong. The welcome wasn't what I expected, and everything about it felt wrong. I walked into the room expecting warmth, but all I got was a cold reception. It was as if I had unknowingly crossed a line, and now I had to pay the price. The moment I entered, the air around me seemed to shift. It felt like the calm before the storm. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to face something I wasn't ready for. I didn't expect it to feel like this. The cold silence, the heavy tension. It was as if they knew something I didn't. There's something unnerving about being watched without a word being spoken. I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't the welcome I imagined. I didn't know whether to smile or run. The atmosphere was suffocating, and every second felt like a test I hadn't studied for. My heart skipped a beat as I entered. The welcome wasn't warm, and I immediately knew something wasn't quite right. I thought I was ready, but as soon as I stepped inside, I realized I wasn't. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife.